Everyone. I am Citizens Spokesperson Doron Spielman. Today is August 11, 2024. This is the daily briefing of the Israeli Citizen Spokesperson's Office. We are live on Instagram, X, YouTube, and LinkedIn, and available afterwards wherever you get your podcasts. Please start submitting questions in the chat, and as always, like and subscribe to help us reach a wider audience. Today is day 310 of the October 7th war and the Hamas hostage crisis. Hamas are murderers. Hamas are rapists. Hamas are also liars. Anyone repeating Hamas's claims, whether you're on campus, whether you're in the news, whether you're the head of a government, and pretending that Hamas is equally or more credible than Israel, you are promoting terrorist propaganda. Yesterday, based on solid intelligence, Israel targeted a group of Hamas murderers who, against international law, were hiding near civilians in a mosque located in a formal school complex. That's two no-nos. They were inside a mosque and they were in a school complex. Open up the book of international law. Both of those are against international law. Israel, on the other hand, went beyond the demands of international law to do everything to minimize casualties, using three precise munitions in timing the strike for the most opportune time, when civilians were as far as possible from the terrorists. Following the strike, Israel provided precise information, pictures, and maps of the 19 Hamas killers and their pictures and their positions within the terrorist infrastructure who were eliminated in the strike. However, sadly, international media are again deceiving the public. They're deceiving you, promoting Hamas propaganda, which said over 100 people were killed. The media is ignoring Hamas's own admissions at the same time in Arabic, which contradicted these claims and said 40 were killed in the whole day in 3 incidents. So which is it? Is it Hamas's claim in English that 100 were killed, or is it Hamas's claim at the exact same time that 40 were killed in Arabic? We can't believe anything Hamas says. They don't even believe themselves. The room that was struck by Israel couldn't even fit anywhere close to 100 people. CNN doesn't report Al-Qaeda's claims as objective fact. BBC doesn't give more credence to ISIS than to Western security forces. Could we imagine if BBC would report and say, in Afghanistan, Al-Qaeda says that the British killed 20 civilians, but allegedly Britain kind of says that they killed terrorists? Would we accept that? We wouldn't accept it about England, not about France, not about Germany or the United States or any Western power, and we certainly should not accept it about Israel, who has done more to move civilians out of the way in this war than any other army has ever done in the history of warfare to move civilians out of their way. Keeping in mind, these are the same civilians that Hamas is putting directly in the way. Why? Because they know that the reporters will report that civilians were killed, and without checking, they will blame Israel. And Hamas terrorists don't become credible just because they call themselves officials. I opened up the news and saw officials in Gaza. What officials? Officials of what? They are the officials of the Hamas terror regime. But Hamas knows irresponsible media and politicians will attack Israel when it takes action against Hamas, which is fighting where it shouldn't be. This is the same official Hamas regime that just 10 months ago proudly filmed themselves massacring 1,200 women and children. Hamas has been fighting out of hospitals, United Nations facilities, dozens and dozens of mosques and schools. They even justify these illegal actions to the New York Times by saying they fight Israel from my home or my neighbor's home or from the mosque, as if because it's their home or their mosque, they're allowed to break international law. Incredibly, those same journalists spoke of Israel's information as being unverified. So here we have it. Hamas officials are absolute fact, but Israel, who actually takes the time to study it, haven't actually been verified. Where are you getting your information from? It is time to absolutely demand that the media change this paradigm. It doesn't help Israel. It doesn't help the people of Gaza, and it certainly hurts you, the viewer. This is the same media that reflexively requested Hamas's claims by repeating 500 to 1,000 people killed in the Achli hospital in October 2023. As you probably remember, Israel didn't even strike that hospital. It was Al Jazeera, not the greatest friend of Israel, who was filming live that showed that in fact the hospital was hit by Hamas's ally, Palestinian Islamic Jihad. And by the way, even Palestinian Islamic Jihad didn't kill hundreds of people. In the end, their mistake only cost the lives of 50 Gazans, which is tragic, but in their eyes, it's probably not enough. And yet, the media continue to read from the same playbook. International law says combatants cannot use protected spaces like hospitals, mosques, and schools. If Hamas uses them, they are no longer protected. They are legitimate targets. Hamas is to blame for any deaths that are caused. It could end the war right now by surrendering and giving Israel back the hostages that it has taken and stored in its terror dungeons. While we're speaking, those people are suffering. Journalists whose reaction to Hamas breaking international law and endangering Gazan civilians is to instead pretend Hamas gets immunity or that Israel's attacking civilians are a part of the problem. When someone promotes Hamas's propaganda, this incentivizes Hamas to continue fighting from around civilians and for other terrorists around the world to do the same. Terrorists around the world are watching how journalists are reporting what is happening in Gaza. If they support Hamas and make them seem legitimate, terrorists that are waiting to do attacks around the world are saying, well, I'll just go out and kill civilians. And then I'll just say, I'll hide behind civilians. And when they come after me and civilians are killed, I'll just say, look at poor me. They're taking Hamas's playbook and they're going to use it. This is the time to stop that from happening. Those journalists are trying to kill those journalists are supporting Hamas, which is trying to kill Israel's children by hiding behind Gaza's children. Unfortunately, this is not just journalists. After Hamas based its murders out of what should have been a protected humanitarian zone, and then published inflated casualty counts, multiple governments ran with the unverified, tainted claims of a barbaric and internationally banned terror organization. US Vice President Kamala Harris said, yet again, far too many civilians have been killed. Well, I'm sorry, I just have to ask a question. Where is the word Hamas in that sentence? Yes, far too many civilians have been killed by Hamas. UK Foreign Minister David Lammy said he was appalled by the Israeli military strike on Al Tabeen School and the tragic loss of life. I'm sorry, did you mean the tragic loss of life because Hamas is operating out of a school and out of a mosque? EU's top diplomat, Joseph Borrell, said at least 10 schools were targeted in the last weeks. There's no justification for these massacres. Did you mean the massacres by Hamas, the word that you forgot to say? Yes, Hamas is massacring Israelis and hiding behind their own people, hoping for massacres. Where is the word Hamas? Belgian Foreign Minister Haja Lahib said she condemns the attack on a school in Gaza, which has claimed the lives of at least 100 displaced people. Well, I also would condemn the innocent death of 100 displaced people if we were to do it. But the people who are there and are causing this are the one word you forgot to say. It was Hamas who were hiding behind those 100 people and shooting at Israelis. Friends condemned the strike in the firmest of terms. Reminder, Hamas was operating out of a protected location in contravention of international law. Reminder, Hamas said in Arabic that 40 people were killed in 3 separate incidents throughout the day, while in English they said 100 people were killed. You don't need us, just read what they have to say. They lie amongst themselves. Do these governments not have people who read Arabic? Do they not realize that by believing Hamas, they are encouraging Hamas? By repeating Hamas's lies, governments are telling Hamas, keep trying to kill innocent children in Israel from behind Gaza's children. Don't worry, we'll believe you when those children die on both sides of the border. And for all those asking what you can do to help, you'll find links to our JGive campaign across social media. Those donations honestly help us getting the truth out to you. And please, like and subscribe. Now we're going to take some questions from our audience, which is watching live on social media.
Our first question today comes from a number of our different audience members who are asking, Iran and its allies say they're winning the psychological war against Israel by delaying their inevitable revenge. What do the people of Israel feel at the moment?
Well, I can tell you, the people of Israel are going about their daily lives. Children are in camps, parents are at work. If you go to the beaches, they're full of people, and so are the marketplaces. So I don't think the psychological war is being won. In fact, Iran has lost the moment it began. Why? Because its partners are some of the worst terror regimes in the entire world, like North Korea. And so if you look around and you want to try to claim that you have victory, look inside your own people who are constantly rioting against you. In Iran, the people of Iran rioted so much that Iran just kept killing them with bullets. These people were unarmed. It lasted for months. Iran, you're not winning a psychological warfare against Israel, and you're not winning in your psychological warfare against your own people. In fact, you're not winning anything because you are a source of evil. Israel does not want to get involved in a war against Iran. We never did. On October 6th, Israel didn't want to go to war against Hamas, Hezbollah, or Iran. Iran has been spending years arming Hezbollah, arming Hamas, arming the Houthis in Yemen so that they can kill Israelis and so that they can kill Americans. This is a losing streak. Instead of trying to make up lies about psychological warfare, just say what you are. You're a terrorist regime dressed up like a country. We're here to say we don't want to fight, but if you do, we'll do everything to protect our people, and you'll be very, very sorry.
Our next question comes from Nancy on Instagram, who asks, what can be done about the false media reporting? Why doesn't Israel let some journalists into Gaza to help correct the record?
Nancy, thank you very much for your question. I will tell you that Israel has allowed journalists into Gaza. I myself took 4 trips into Gaza with journalists who saw what was happening. I took journalists to the humanitarian corridor while Israel engaged in the largest humanitarian effort of a war zone in the history of any war, of any conflict around the world, where we moved 1.8 million people from Gaza into safe zones. The journalists saw this with their own eyes. All of the newspapers and media channels that you represent, I was in there with them. At the end of the day, the journalists will decide if they want to believe Israel, which takes its time and searches for the truth, or they want to believe a terrorist regime. What can you do, Nancy? And I appreciate the question. You have got to just get out the message. As I've said numerous times before on this channel, if you are in a stadium full of 10,000 people and 10 people stand up and scream in unison, all those other people will hear them. But if 20 people stand up speaking the truth, while those 10 are yelling, they will hear the truth. Be part of the 20. Be part of those who gets out the message of truth. That is the only way that this is going to be won from a media basis. If more and more people push out the truth, and don't let those who are standing behind the lies be the only voice speaking in the auditorium.
Our next question comes from Robin on Instagram, who asks, is the deal on the table that Kamala Harris keeps talking about a real deal? And is it true that all sides have agreed? What will this mean for the hostages?
Without getting into specific details, as I don't think this is the right forum, of whatever deal is being brokered, Israel has said for months and months and months. In fact, Israel said from October 8th that this entire conflict in Gaza could end immediately. There doesn't need to be any war in Gaza. All that has to happen are 2 things. Hamas, the terror regime, has to lay down their weapons and give up and give back Israeli hostages, which they took not only in the most gruesome and brutal attack on Israeli soil ever, but they took in contravention of international law. Israel has been saying now for months, we're seriously considering all these proposals. We've put our check mark behind it and shaken hands. It has always been Hamas that has backed down. Why? Because Hamas will not accept any proposal that does not enable them to stay somewhat in power, so that they will do what? Not go pick flowers and hand out daisies to the world for peace, so that they will go back underground, regroup, and carry out another October 7th attack. We have to understand Hamas is not like you and I. Hamas isn't rational. They are built to kill. And so therefore, any hostage deal that does not enable them to continue to kill Israelis, they keep rejecting. So until that changes, there won't be a deal on the table. We're doing everything we can, both militarily and trying to deal with these terrorists, which is sickening, in order to bring our people home. But the ball is truly in Hamas's court.
The next question comes from Erdman Beat on Instagram, who asks, where is Mr. Sinwar and how does he communicate without Israel finding him?
Well, I can tell you where Mr. Sinwar isn't. He's not with the civilians and citizens of Gaza whose lives he's made hell. He's not with his fighters who are trying to kill Israelis. Mr. Sinwar, as you're referring to him, is deep, deep underground where he is safe, where he can plan his terror missions without ever putting himself at risk. He is the epitome of what a coward truly is. As a matter of fact, I think it's incredibly appropriate that Hamas just elected him as their supreme leader, because he is a coward who hides without ever actually going to war, and they're cowards by trying to kill civilians without ever wanting to engage Israeli forces face to face. There's something very much in common. With regards to when Israel's going to get to him, Israel has taken out, there's a list of 5. 4 of the 5 have now been eliminated. The only one left on that list is Sinwar. Now, how long did it take to kill Osama bin Laden? 11 years? It's been 10 months. If I was a betting man, I would bet that Mr. Sinwar's days are seriously numbered. And probably the last thing he'll ever see is some type of missile heading directly on him when he does decide to come out of his little terror dungeon from underneath the ground.
The next question comes from What I Just Said on Instagram, who asks, is the release of Barghouti really on the table?
I can tell you, releasing Barghouti is like if Osama bin Laden was still alive, releasing Osama bin Laden from jail. Barghouti has enough blood on his hands to fill dozens and dozens of bathtubs. He planned terror attacks against Israeli children who were walking down the street and boarding buses on Purim. Purim is like the Jewish holiday when the kids dress up like Halloween. Those are the buses that he attacked. This is the most grotesque human being. One of the most grotesque. As a matter of fact, he and Sinwar probably are head to head on the face of the earth. Israel trying to release Barghouti. Listen, we want to bring our hostages home, but to release another bloody killer back on the streets who's calling for the death of Israelis, that's not going to be done lightly. We'll just have to see what takes place.
And the last question today, to end on a slightly more optimistic note, what is your message and thoughts to the Israeli rhythmic gymnastics team who won silver at the Olympics yesterday?
I think this truly shows the character of Israel. The Israeli Olympic gymnastics team yesterday for rhythmic dancing won an Olympic medal. They stood strong. There have been constant terror threats against Israeli performers that are in the Olympics. And while our country is being threatened by terrorists around the world, Israelis are comfortable and confident that we have a future. And every Israeli looks at those gymnasts in the Olympics and feels that they're also gymnasts in the Olympics, because over the long run, every Israeli is a winner. We're going to go about our lives. We're not seeking war. We're here to defend ourselves. And we have the basic value that Israel is a democracy in the Middle East. It's here for us. It's here for you. And we're going to protect it, and we're going to do it with a smile on our face. Thank you for all of your questions today. Thank you for joining us every day. We are here at 3 p.m. Israel time, 8 a.m. EST, Eastern Standard Time. Please follow us on all of your social media, on podcasts, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Instagram. We're here for you. Thank you for being here for us. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks for watching. Drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, share, and hit subscribe to stay updated with our latest content. Until next time, stay informed and inspired. This is Djobnik signing off.